As it is, security takes the front burner again, and the issues just don't seem to be going away. How do we take on these violent crimes happening all over the place? Well, it is heartwarming to know that, I mean, we get reports from time to time that security officials are doing one thing or the other to ensure that they get ahead of the information. In Taraba State, we understand that security officials intercepted some some insurgents and got some equipment from them. That's very heartwarming. A product of intelligence, gathering, use, and all of that. But then to hear that there were killings in Kaduna again, I don't know. But let's look at these issues with Adenrele Shinaba, who is a former Assistant Inspector General of Police here in Lagos to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
He is in company of security consultant Onyekachi Adekoya, also here with us. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Shinaba. First of all, I was asking you, how are you taking on all these divergent information about insecurity and the way we are tackling them?
It's very saddening to start hearing all these informations about insecurity generally in the country. More so if you were once an active member of the force that took part in the fight against insecurity generally. It's not pleasing to hear, and one looks at it that what are we doing about it? What is it that the country is doing about the level of insecurity we have today? Every day there are killings in this country. They reported this morning again 38 people that were killed in a village in Kaduna State. And it has been like a recurring decimal. The next you hear is another place. So it's not restricted to any particular area of the country. It's in general something.
Well, you served in the force. Before I could take Mr. Adekoya's opening comments, you served in the force for 33 years.
Yes.
You only recently retired about, say, 5 years ago?
Exactly.
What was your experience? The insurgency in particular, we understood, really came to a head in 2009, but it wasn't the only time we began to have all these kinds of issues, the kidnappings of children in 2014 and all that. You were in office. What are the things that you would say were our shortfalls that perhaps even made us more vulnerable till now?
I agree with you that insurgency had been on, but came to a head in 2009. And I wrote a book, The Nigeria Police Force and the Management of Insurgency in Nigeria, a study of Borno and Kano states. You see, it came to a head with the killing of Mohammed Yusuf, the leader in Maiduguri, by the police. And ever since then, the Northeast had not known peace as a result of the activities of Boko Haram. And the problem now is that there are splinter groups of these Boko Haram insurgents. You have the ISWAP, you have these different, they come in different forms and shapes. And the government, I think, there is the need for the government to do more than they are presently doing. For instance, there are retired officers, both in the military and in the police, who have been stakeholders in this fight against terrorism. There is the need to bring these retired officers together and let them form a kind of think tank for the serving members so that they can sit down, put their thoughts together, and come up with a solution to this. I can assure you, if you keep on recruiting people, able-bodied men and women into the force, that's not the solution. It's not about the personnel, the number of people you have, but the equipment that are needed to carry out this assignment.
Okay. Let me take Mr. Adekoya's opening comments. Well, from all that is available, it would seem like we are winning some and losing some. Would you say that's an accurate summation or something we're missing still?
I would say that's a perfect assessment of the situation. And it's a product of the way we are set up. I would be surprised if anybody's expecting a different result, because it would seem that our approach to security in this country is quite static. And we are caught up in the assumptions of the past. And those assumptions no longer hold sway. The Nigerian security system is facing a Hydra-headed challenge, and we are having waves, emphasis, waves of attacks, waves upon waves upon waves of attack. The static system cannot cope. The system is failing. Interventionist knee-jerk reactions are not the way to go in the 21st century.
Apologies, Mr.
Yes.
Static approach. What do you mean?
It's just old assumptions. I'll give you an example. For example, in Anambra, sometime in 1999 to 2007, you had this guy called Derrick Owamama terrorizing Anambra State. We've had cases where you had Shinorambos, you had the Aninis. We had cases in Nigeria where crime was personified in singular persons. So you could confront with brute force that single ideology or that person, and which is what led to the killing of Yusuf, because the approach has always been attack head on the tip of the spear, and then hoping that the back end of the insurgency will crumble. That assumption can no longer hold, because now you have bandits. They are faceless. They are without any clear ideology. They are armed criminal groups as far as we are concerned. At the back of their ideology is just economic interest. So when you face a faceless enemy, you have to be dynamic, quite flexible, and you must push command to the field. Push command to the field and let the approach be local, as dynamic as the enemy you are facing. Importantly, we have only one police force in Nigeria, policing over 200 to 220 million people. For example, the United States has approximately 18,000 agencies responsible for security in one country with about 50 to 51 states. With a population of what? About 350 million. Just take off 150 million, you get the average population of Nigeria. California alone has almost 70,000 policemen. So yes, I agree that, it's not about the total numbers. For me, it's about the structure. Having to rely so much on a federalistic approach can no longer satisfy the yearnings and imperatives of security in the 21st century. We must have state police, at least to give the military some respite and give the federal police some respite. The Chief of Defense Staff is having to bury men every day. No jokes. The IGP is having to confront the same issues. The forces everywhere are overstretched, and they're overwhelmed, and there is no respite in sight for the fighting men.
But can we make an allusion, Mr. Adekoya, to
Yes.
the fact that, just as you said, we have quite a number of security agencies in the country, at least 12 or 13. Customs is one of them, immigration is one of them, road safety is one of them, NSCDC is one of them, NIA is there, and all of those things. Would you say that we have effectively put to use all of these agencies? Are they all doing what is expected to them, kitted enough to do what is expected of them in the first place? The influx of small arms is coming from the borders that are manned by certain specific security agencies, for instance.
Now, brings me to another very serious point. The issue again is about structuring. Yes, you have the NIA, the DMI, you have the DSS, you have all these agencies, immigration, customs. Those agencies are all a product of the society. And generally in Nigeria, we seem to abhor systemic thinking. We like to act in silos and nobody looking at the bigger picture. And that's the problem. We're not looking at the bigger picture. Yeah, so if you set up the intelligence agencies and you group them and they're supposed to give you intelligence, yes, what do you then do with the intelligence? When you have actionable intelligence, what is the structure you have on ground to address the issues that are being thrown up by the intelligence? So it's not a question of intelligence. And I dare say the DSS has personnel in every local government in this country. Intelligence is not the issue. No, sir, it is not. We have intelligence. I can tell you firsthand. In fact, you don't need to be a security officer or intelligence person to have intelligence. There's open source intelligence. The Punch newspaper put out reports. The Daily Trust puts out situational reports every day on the Northeast. Just go there. There's information of how things are trending, and sometimes you get alerts on what is about. The locals themselves, it's funny, in some part of the North, the locals know when something is about to happen. And they clear the place and then they leave the security agencies flying blind. So there is intelligence. We don't have the correct structure. We need state police. It's as simple as that. We can come and have conjectures and have different theories. Why do we need state police? We need to localize the approach to security. The ownership, the responsibility, the accountability for policing and ensuring security in a state has to rest true and true in the governor of the state. When you have that, you then have the federal forces as a support force to the state while they focus on the issue of maintaining the territorial integrity of Nigeria. Currently, the whole northwest to northeast is awash. The lines of the borders between Niger, Chad, Cameroon are blood. And so that's why you see states on the fringes of the borders with Niger. States like Sokoto, you can hear the Sultan of Sokoto, lamenting. States like Borno just go up the whole from the two ends of the northwest to the northeast. States that border the Sahel. It's almost as though we are borderless. So how much can the immigration service do? If you had a state police, for example, addressing local issues, federal might can focus more correctly on those issues of territorial integrity while providing interventionist force to support the state forces. Until we do this, we will continue to suffer our lack of preparedness from these waves. The waves will only increase. Okay. Mind you, on the eve of every election cycle, we're going into 2022, we've seen statistically that crime rates will spike. And if you think you've seen incidents of crime, we've not seen anything yet. As we get into 2022, man is a creature of habit. Habitually, crime rates will spike because political actors will now join the fray. Case in point, look at Kano. Kano has been very peaceful for some time. Now, incidents of political unrest is almost picking up in Kano, and those will lead to some form of violence if not watched. So the stage is being set for 2022, 2023 elections, and we are not prepared. So I think the problem is quite bigger than old ideologies, old assumptions, coming here to sermonize or theorize on what should be, what should not be. We are not structured correctly in this 21st century to address the issues of insecurity. And sadly, the people are paying the ultimate price. They are paying with their lives. Every day you turn the pages of the paper, people are dying every day. Life has almost lost any sense of value in this country.
Okay. Well, Mr. Medika, some of the issues that you have raised are calling for the attention of Mr. Shinaba. How do you take those things that he said?
Well, I want to disagree with Mr. Adekoya on the point of state police for this country. The issue of state police cannot work in this country. And why? We have experimented it in the past.
When?
That was during the First Republic. We had a kind of, we call them local government police in the north, in the south, everywhere here. But You know, from what he is saying, state police will be in the hands of the governor of the state. And the dangers are there. The governor, especially in the democratic dispensation we have, will use the state police to his own advantage and to the detriment of his opponents and the community in general.
But how does that differ from what we have now?
Well, it's different because they will say the governor is the #1 security officer of the state.
Yeah.
And the state go ahead to say that the commissioner of police in charge of the state does not take directives from the governor. Rather, he takes directives from the inspector general of police in Abuja.
But there are those who also say that this argument is the same reason that whoever is the president will always use the police to his own advantage.
Well, if they say the president will use, I don't know how he's going to do that.
So how then will it happen in the state level?
Of course, it happens in the state. In the state. Okay, look at what we are experiencing today. The governor of the state will be the one to give policemen vehicles, give them equipment and things like that. Recently, the Edo State governor donated 60 patrol vans to the police in Edo State Command. That's what we are saying.
But the states have been doing that for as far back as I can remember.
Yes.
You know that Lagos State, for instance, has a security council. And there are a number of states like that who have continued on a regular basis to support the police with infrastructure, with operational equipment and facilities and all of that, because, as you said, they are the chief security officers of their states.
Yes.
So if they already do that, what is wrong with them also being able to command the troops that they support in order to ensure the security of lives and property within their domain?
It will be subject to abuse. It will be subject to abuse when you leave the state, when you leave the police in the hands of the governor. Look, most of these problems we are having now, or we are talking about insecurity and all this, is a product of the politicians. It's a byproduct of the politicians.
But don't we have politicians at the federal level?
Of course we have, both at the federal, state, and local government levels. We have them. But I believe that rather than have state police, we should delve more on community policing.
How effective? Anyway, let me start. Adekoya, quickly respond to that before we go to Abuja. Mr. Adekoya.
Yeah, thank you very much. And with very profound respect, I do disagree with the AIG retired. I have a lot of industry colleagues who are retired generals and retired very senior officers in the services. And generally, I sense from interactions with them that you can't teach old people new tricks, particularly once they are set in their way. And I say this with very profound respect. The beauty of democracy is that the people determines how they want to be governed, not ideologies from very few set of people. And it's completely wrong, I would dare say, with also respect, that to say that the governor of a state cannot be trusted with force. Absolutely, we should just go back to monarchical system or forget about democracy all completely, because democracy in itself has its own checks and balance.
But those concerns are genuine.
Sorry, they are not. How is it different? We've had a sitting president remove a sitting governor from this country. We've had policemen removed from the aids of a governor in this country. We've had places place of residence of justices of the Supreme Court ransacked by federal forces, and then we claim they are unknown people. How is it different? We are saying that the country is drifting. We are holding on to assumptions that are no longer tenable. We can't say that as a state, for example, Lagos State with over 22 million people, we cannot trust the governor with the use of force. Is that what we're saying? Or that we are so much holed up in the ideology of regime protection, and that the life of one man, the CEC, is all that counts, and 220 million people can go and die for all anybody cares. Is that what we are saying? Because I'm sick and tired of this ideology perpetuating itself. And with due respect, I'd almost say to my friends who are in the services that you're a general doesn't mean that you're a subject matter expert on security. You could be a general in finance or administration. It doesn't mean you're an expert. So I do say that
some people will say, I mean, because you've cited the fact that, you know, as it currently stands, the police has already been abused. They've already been excesses, you know, as it currently stands. I guess what a lot of people are afraid of is the proliferation of that sort of excess. Do you share their fears?
No, not at all, not at all, not at all. When we say the proliferation, would you rather have the proliferation of insecurity as we currently have now, the proliferation of small and light weapons as we currently have now, or you have the multiplication of force across the states? Which would we rather have? We are drifting. When we talk about security, we talk about accountability. The IG, as one man, impossible. You don't. The IG's office is a market, if you've ever been there, with due respect to the IG. And yes, the AIG has said, correct, politicians are the problem. The man doesn't have time to do the work of a police. The DIG operation does more of the operations of the police. Because politicians, emir chiefs, everybody throng into one man for security. How can the IG know what is happening in Bogon, or happening in Iseluku, or know what's happening in Umapiti or Susun? How does he know what's even happening in Mafa? When we talk about security, we talk about accountability and responsibility. As further away as you go from the field, as further away as command goes from the field, the level of responsibility and accountability and attention to detail that should be there will be lacking, because people generally do what you inspect, not what you expect. So we are already in a crisis situation. The fears of saying that...
Let me send this to...
Please go ahead.
Let me send this to Mr. Shinaba, because you have already explained in great detail why security needs to be local. And I think that's what a number of people are pointing to, the fact that protection has to be there for the people. Just yesterday, 38 people, that's a lot of people, 38 people lost their lives in one attack. The week before, we were told, counting people who had died owing to the activities of non-state actors, 32 people. The week before that, 69 people. And these are human beings, Nigerians whom we're counting. And this is currently happening under the current structure which we have. Isn't it time to try something else?
Yeah. I think it's time we try something else. Security, in the first instance, is dynamic and should be seen as such. Take for a look the current insurgency we've been having, and we have tried so many ways, tactics, towards bringing it to an end. Despite all we have done, no result has been achieved as far as I'm concerned, because if you are fighting a battle and you have not gotten the result, then it's as good as not fighting it. And let us be guided that terrorism, insurgency, is not a conventional warfare that the military and the police were trained to combat. So it's somehow we should appreciate what they are doing. Even though we are looking at the results so far, the killings on daily basis, I mean, is nauseating. And I think the government needs to do more to end the insurgency, because there is the need for us to change our approach towards fighting it. And a lot of information gathering from the locals, from the people, will go a long way in supporting the fight against insurgency.
Well, terrorism, in the past used to be confined to the northeast. Right now, in order to different... Can you hear me, sir?
Very well.
Okay. I was saying that you spoke of dynamism in security operations. In what ways would you say that security operations have shown itself to be dynamic in terms of how it has evolved over the years?
Well, there had been different strategies that had been put in place in terms of combating insurgency. The use of the locals, the local hunters, the establishment of some of these things like Amotekun and the others in some various states, and the civilian joint civilian task force that are also there to assist the fighters at the front are very, very good initiative, but still we cannot say for sure that we are winning the war against insurgency. And that is why I say that
we'll come back in a moment, Mr. Shinaba. We'll come back in a moment and we'll interrogate some of these dynamic outfits which you have mentioned in just a moment. Please stay with us. We're still talking about insecurity in Nigeria and how to curb the spread, especially in the light of news that about 38 people were killed in overnight attacks in Kaduna State. We have with us this morning two gentlemen, Mr. Adenrele Shinaba, who is a former Assistant Inspector General of Police, and Mr. Onyekachi Adekoya, who is a security consultant. The gentlemen are in our Lagos studios. And just before we went on break, I was asking Mr. Shinaba how he thinks that our security agencies have shown their dynamism. And he was giving us a response of how we've been able to introduce a few other security apparatus, Motekun in the southwest, MNJTF, that's that's not the civilian joint task team in Borno State and in some other places facing insurgency. But, you know, AIG, some people will say that this speaks to the need for security to be more local, for security to be drilled down. And it was in response to that need that we saw some of these, contraptions come up. For instance, Amotekun, we saw how it was greeted nationally and how the governors of the Southwest were defiant in terms of owning that particular force. In the northeast of the country, we see that it is as a result of necessity that the civilian joint task team has, come up. And there were even questions as to whether they should be allowed to carry arms. Eventually, I think they were allowed to do that. So if we're already developing these alternatives, or like I say, alternates to state police, why wouldn't we just go the full hog and, give these people the powers to actually be able to command a team that can do work for protecting lives and property?
Yeah, I think what we should realize is that the emergence of these outfits as a result of the present situation in which we find ourselves. These are supposed to be ad hoc arrangements as it is required at this time of critical security situation. That is not to say that, in my own opinion, we require state police, because rather than having a state police, it would have been more appropriate for the country to carry out what I called community policing, which had its roots in Britain, and it has worked for them. And we discovered that it can work for us in this country, because the police cannot do it alone. Even the military cannot do it alone. They require informations from members of the public. The military, for instance, do not live among the people, but they require information from the people. The police require such information to get to the root of any matter. Even in ordinary investigation, there is the need for information to be supplied to the police before they can actually make a breakthrough in anything. So I'm not advocating for state police. Rather, I'm against it. But I am of the view that community policing serves us better than, because that is not subject to abuse, serves us better than the state police.
Let me talks about community policing, and oftentimes there's always a confusion as to what precisely community policing is and what, this is from Mr. Adekoya, and what state policing is all about. If it's to achieve security of lives and property, why do you think we're shying away from state police?
Yeah, first of all, let's define what the current community policing proposal is, as proposed by the police force, which I think is a measure to save face and a political stunt that has no basis whatsoever to address the issues we have. You have a community constable. Already we have the supernumerary police, the spy police, which are almost doing the same thing as you would have the community police. In every community, you have a community constable who is not armed and has a different uniform. He's not a police officer, he's not paid. He's a volunteer person. He cannot do more than what any civilian can do. Every civilian can effect a civilian arrest. That's the most they can do. Every civilian can share information. But there's a trust deficit between the people and the police. So the community policing would not do anything. It doesn't change the narrative on the ground. It's just a sing-song, as it were. With due respect to the police force, just a sing-song to say, yes, we are doing something and we are creating a community police with nothing backing its structure. As a matter of fact, the governors of the state are supposed to pay the community police officers their allowance, and these same persons will not be armed. So what do we have here? We are just dancing around the issues again and again. I would say to the handlers of Nigerian security, we should stop being carpenters. Because if you're a carpenter, every problem looks like a nail, and all you have is a hammer. So when you say, what are the dynamic approaches we've used to addressing security? Nothing. An incident happens, we respond. We are always behind the curve. When you talk about security architecture and developing one, let me paint a bit of a picture of what we should be doing. We need to drill down, as we've overemphasized, create a local structure with bite. Create a state structure with bite. Create a supervising federal structure, but a federal structure that does not insult the subnationals. Because currently what we have now is that every subnational has yielded in trust its rights to self-defense and protection to the federal government, believing that the federal government will take all necessary measures to ensure their safety and security, which is enshrined in the Constitution. Now, this is not working. So we now have to come back. Why is it not working? We have stated the issues. You now look at policy framework in which your new approach will follow. Government is singing the right song. The 2019 National Security Strategy emphasized on human security being the approach to go into the 21st century. When you talk about human security, you talk about the ideals of a human society. Amenities, structure that ensure that people can live a peaceable life, pursue their aspiration without fear or let. If that is our aspiration, we now need to implement that aspiration. So in terms of economic policies, generally, I mean, I could give a lecture on this, but the failure of leadership is our problem. Because when you don't address macroeconomic issues and provide a framework for people to aspire and to unlock the potentials in the country, then we find ourselves all restricted in a small space. The extractive industry is even a case in point. We are just going practically nowhere in this country. And it's not the fault of justice administration. It's the fault of an old thinking. We need to unlock potentials within the subnational level. Create a policing structure that is owned by the people and for the people. The policemen serving today must not forget that they are first civilians drawn from the society, given the powers of the people to ensure security on their behalf. They are no special persons. The training they currently receive, they themselves will agree, is grossly inadequate. They are grossly under-resourced. Sorry, let me just land with this.
Okay.
And without the state government supporting the police as it is today, the Nigerian police will be on its knees. Because the capital budget of the police for the past 20, 30 years has not exceeded, capital budget has not exceeded 5 billion. 5 billion release, maybe 10, 15 billion on paper. And before the IG gets that money, he has to go cap in hand. So the IG doesn't even have the resources to equip the police. The last IG before this made requests for equipment, got less to nothing. So there are issues that we must germanely address and stop the sing-song, you know, and everyone roll up the sleeves. Leadership is required.
Okay. Well, Mr. Shinaba, concerning this issue of funding the police, you referenced it the other time as well, that some of the states that we have already do the job of equipping, financing, mobilizing officers of the police to some extent. So one then wonders, how much worse could it be then if the governors of governments, as he has said, who already funds the police, also have, you know, some executive powers to marshal their forces with restrictions, perhaps?
It's very good you added that phrase, with restrictions. You see, the problem of the police, as we talk, we've all been talking about funding. And it is true. The police are underfunded. And it's a problem of leadership. You can't blame any policeman or the police hierarchy for that. Because the money comes from the state. And if it does not come, how do they perform? We say the British police are doing very well, the foreign police are doing, the American police are doing this, that, and that. Look at the Nigeria police. Each time they go out on a foreign mission, on a foreign assignment, they always excel. Why? Why is it that they can perform outside the shores of this country and cannot perform within? It speaks volumes. It shows that they are not given the conducive environment to operate. If a policeman performs during a peacekeeping operation in any of these countries where they have performed, they started since 1960 in Congo, they have gone to so many places, Namibia and all other places. They are given the right things that are needed by the United Nations that organizes the assignment. The vehicle, the communication gadgets, the allowances, and everything is taken care of. But when we get back home here, you can see some of the rickety vehicles that the police have to contend with in the operation. And I can assure you, it's the police vehicle that should not even work for a year. Maybe for a period of 6 months. There are different drivers. The one on morning duty comes, picks the vehicle, go out on patrol. By the time he closes, the one on night duty, a different person handles the same vehicle. And this vehicle is running 24 hours of the day, more than even a commercial vehicle. So it needs constant changing of vehicles and equipment. The man you are seeing is not motivated to do his job. He's not. And let me tell you, one of the most hazardous jobs in this world is policing.
Well, some may agree with you there. I mean, are you then saying that the 20% increase, salary increase that is set to be taken off in January is sufficient?
That's very funny. How many times have the government said they are increasing the police salary? How many times have they said it? Has it been implemented?
They said it will start in January.
That's another election promise. As far as I am concerned, I'm seeing it as that. We pray they do it. January is around the corner. Let us pray they do it, because everything in this country must be attributed to prayers.
Well, Mr.
hand it over to God.
Adekoya said the other time that one of the topics about this security, he would give a lecture on it. I really wish we had time for that lecture, because I said that to say there is a lot to unpack as far as security or a lack of it is concerned, and those who need to do one thing or the other about it really need to get working, because losing lives on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and recurring losses of both security officials and ordinary Nigerians is most certainly heartrending, and I don't think any government official even wants that. For now, we have to thank you very much for being a part of our conversation. Adenrele Shinaba is a former Assistant Inspector General of Police. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
As well as Onyeka Chi Adekoya, who is a security consultant. Thank you again.
Thank you
being
for
here.
having me.
We'll continue after now to look at another issue of importance, especially in the coming year. Stay with us.